Hello, welcome to Avant Artist Photography. My name is Thomas Zipperstein and I'll be your host for the program. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by Cincinnati's only international award-winning lifestyle and wedding photographer, a woman who has worked across the world, including places such as Chicago, New York, Hong Kong, and Prague. Her works have been featured in print publications such as Elle, Esquire magazine, the New York Times magazine, among many others. Sherri Barber, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Sherri, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how did you get into photography?
Well, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, so I got into photography just as a little bit of a hobby, and I ended up deciding to go back to school when I was 26 to learn more about it, and I entered into the electronic media department here at UC Blue Ash.
Yeah.
I love the courses and I love the classes, and actually I started my degree project was my business that I have now. So,
Wow.
and it's been going since.
So, for your degree project, was it a wedding?
It was just basically a business model, which I've always been very into, like kind of fashion or editorial shoots. So what I did was I made a website, I created a logo, I created business cards, comp cards, and then I used 3 different models and did portfolio prints for them for the 3 different shoots that I did for it. So it was just kind of an overall base of a business.
With regard to your business model, how do you get new business? Is it mostly through the website and your branding, or is it through referrals?
It's mainly through, at this point, it's all referrals and print publications. So a lot of times when people see me in print, they contact me. I'm also work very closely with planners and venues. So a lot of times when someone books a wedding here, they go into a venue, they're like, we prefer this photographer.
Okay.
This photographer works here, so.
Because it's, I guess when it comes down to it, business is not just about being really good at your craft. It's
Absolutely not. I would say 20% of my business is photography. The rest is building relationships, the marketing, the branding, everything else. Barely any of it's actually photography.
It's the Pareto principle, 80-20. You're doing so much else, and then the finished product becomes exceptional. So I guess I'm a little bit curious about how you got into the print publications. What's the story behind your first one there?
Just submit to magazines, and fortunately, a lot of times other magazines pay attention to that as well. A huge tool that I have noticed in the past year and a half is Instagram. I have gotten so many print publications just on hashtagging certain,
Certain shots?
Well, I just shot a wedding in Antigua last week, and I just hashtag a couple magazines, and it's last week it was in Huffington Post, and then Destination Idea, which is an international magazine, is doing a 6-page spread on it based off of just one photo they saw. They haven't seen anything else.
That's amazing.
I always do something called like a little sneak peek the night of, and I pick my favorite photo. So it's instant gratification for the clients. They're raving about it. They're sharing it, and then I get a lot of bookings just off that one photo.
So essentially it becomes viral when you get that photo through Huffington.
Absolutely, and you get it the night of your wedding.
So when you're doing a wedding, I know that it's a very, very long process. When do you actually start that process?
Well, you're going to learn really quickly that you have to delegate. So I meet with the clients, the potential clients. I meet them in a consultation. From there, I have 2 full-time employees, and one girl from that point on schedules their engagement sessions, does all their customized timelines of their wedding day, also does all the editing and the album design. I have it streamlined to weddings now where I literally just show up, I shoot, I walk away, and I meet with them, and that's it.
That's pretty smart. So how much time does that take? How many hours?
12 hours total.
12 hours.
Including the consultation, the engagement session, and shooting the wedding day, about 12 to 14 hours total.
So how many hours of that day are you actually there for the wedding?
8.
8.
Unless they pay me for more.
So you really, in terms of your business model, you really have it down to a science at this point.
A lot of trial and error, but yes, it's down to a science. And you really learn that things that you don't want to do, don't do it. pay someone else to do it. Like, I haven't edited a photo and I don't know how long.
Really?
I hate doing album designs. I hate editing. I just want to take pictures and that's it.
That's pretty cool. So when you so when you're doing the photos, how many photos are you going to take during a day? Do you try to limit the excess photos?
No, not at all. Because I have a second shooter there. I'd say on average there's about 3,500 photos taken in the day.
Okay.
Also, I just love to experiment. So I love playing with off-camera flash and video lighting and everything like that. So I'll just, push it as much as I can. And then I have a girl named Sarah that works for me she's worked for me for almost 6 years full time. And it's her problem to go through those photos.
So she does all the editing?
She does all the editing. Mm-hmm.
And she uses, I'm assuming, Photoshop?
No, we do not use Photoshop.
Oh.
We are Lightroom only.
Lightroom only.
Yeah, I know with me, like, I've just learned how to be very minimalist and streamlined just because, like I said, 20% of it's shooting, so I'm a very clean shooter now. I know exactly how to get it, where I want to get it. Photoshop, I always say, is for people who don't know how to take photos. So
Right.
Just basic edits in Lightroom, and that's it.
Okay, I guess I need to learn and work on my photography because I use Photoshop.
Anyway, I've been doing this for years now, so I've been doing it for a long time, so it took me a while to get there.
So why not Photoshop? Why do you?
I don't, it's dependent on style. I am not big on post processing just because I want it to look as natural and as real as possible. And I'm super dramatic with my lighting that it's just going to look ridiculous. I say that my work is classically edgy. I want it to be timeless and classic and go with the times. Like the wedding hat in the 80s was super hot then, but I don't want to be an 80s wedding hat 20 years from now. I want everything to go through. So like the vintage filters or anything like that, it's just trendy and it's not going to last at all. So I shy away from that.
So how do you accomplish the dramatic looks without editing? Is it mostly
neutral density filters, off-camera flashes, a mix of video and flash, just really knowing how to use your gear. Prime lenses are amazing just to get a lot of depth and to let a lot of light in.
Can you explain what the prime lens is for
Prime lens is a fixed focal length lens. So right here you actually have a prime lens. This is a 50 millimeter 1.8. It's called the Nifty 50. I started my business on this lens.
Okay.
So this stops down to 1.8, so that means it's letting in a ton of light, a lot more than a 4.5, 5.6, or even a 2.8 lens. Because of that, you are able to manipulate light a lot more as well. So you can be in super dark situations and then make it darker and then use off-camera flashes to make it really pop.
Okay.
One of the shot that was done just got published was done with a 35 millimeter 1.4. It was done at sunset, but I wanted it darker, so I used a neutral density filter, stopped my camera down by 15 stops, and then shot at 1.4 35 to make it look darker than what it actually was, and pull all the color. You just kind of learn to manipulate and pull colors out naturally out of the sky versus post-processing.
And you find that makes things a lot easier if you
Oh my
just
gosh,
get it right the first time.
Absolutely. Don't waste your time. Time is money.
Time
People are paying you for your time.
So what is the camera that you use now?
I use a Canon 5D Mark IIIs. I have 4 of them, and I'm switching to Sony AR7 IIs.
And why are you doing that?
I am an official sponsor of Sony now, so when they're going to give me a lot of free gear, I'm going to try it out. I hear the mirrorless system is astounding, so I'm excited to get all this new gear and learn. It will be a big learning curve because I've only used Canon up until this point, but I'm very excited to see what Sony's doing just because of the output I have seen it's done. It's just killing Canon and Nikon right now, so you have to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, right. That's one thing that I notice when I'm shooting in darker light situations is that when I bump the ISO up, that it becomes an incredibly grainy picture, and you can't really edit that so well in post-production because if you try to make it look sharper, it just kind of looks silly.
Absolutely, and I honestly, just with me, that's the last thing I touch to adjust lighting is my ISO.
Yeah.
So that's just because of the grain factor in it.
when I looked at your website, you spoke about how on a wedding day, whether the weather is good or bad or just terribly ugly, that you can make the lighting situation look incredible, as if it's a very nice day.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? Because I think that's one of the most amazing things that a really good photographer can do.
Well, I think the thing is a lot of times people rely heavily on natural light. You know, of course, anybody can shoot a wedding outside in a barn and it's going to look great. They don't exactly need to know how to use anything else. I personally prefer dark spaces. I love cloudy, stormy days, and I love night photography. And it's because I've really learned how to use a mix of ice lights, off-camera flash, video lighting, multiple flashes, that sort of thing. When I shot in this destination wedding, I'm just sitting there walking around, shutting all the blinds and everything like that, making it super dark. So I create my own lighting situation. I don't need Mother Nature to do it.
All right.
So that's a big thing.
Do you prefer to use natural lighting if it's there, if that's possible? No, not at all.
No, then I'm like everyone else. I have a very distinct look, and it's because I don't rely on natural light.
All right. You do editorial photography.
Mm-hmm.
So could you explain what that means? Particularly, from my understanding, it's telling a story with your photos, but I've heard various definitions.
I definitely tell a story with your photos. Like when you get your wedding photos, it is a wordless book. You see everything. But when I approach your bridal portraits or anything like that, I'm editorial. I treat it as you are a model in a high fashion magazine. I always tell my brides, I was like, you'll never spend that much money on an outfit. You'll never look like this ever again. So we are just going to treat it like an editorial spread, which that's just my personal approach. And fortunately, it's worked for me. And last year, 86% of my weddings were published in magazines, not blogs, magazines. And it's because I know how to, I'm very big on posing to make them look as natural as possible, but people don't know how they look to me, and I'm very good at being vocal of what I want with them.
So are there certain situations that you know is a go-to situation during the wedding process for the bride that you know, like she's, I guess, obviously like the gown could be an example, or something else that you know you want to capture it in a certain way?
No, actually, the more I've been in this business, the more I want to walk into things blindly, because I feel I'm very strong. I know how to light anything. I know what I want from anything. But going in blindly pushes me creatively. I don't want every wedding to look exactly like the last person's or the next person's. So I kind of like to walk into situations not knowing what I'm going to do, because then I just get my own wheels going.
All right. It's kind of the creative process. And, you know, if you try to put borders or bounds on it, then...
Exactly. Then you're scrambling, you're spinning your wheels, and you're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
And especially with weddings, you're on such a time crunch. I will have 17 minutes to get these portraits done, but their hair and makeup could have been running late, so now I have 9 minutes.
All right.
So, and fortunately, my assistants have been trained very heavily that I can just yell out numbers. They just sit there and know how to set every flash and every video light. And
you've got them well trained.
Yes.
They're in line.
Yes, because we will be walking to a location and I'm just yelling numbers, and they're sitting there just setting everything so that way, and they know exactly where to position themselves, where to put the backlights.
You do international photography. Mm-hmm. Is it mostly weddings that you're doing internationally?
Actually, I do international pre-wedding photography. In the Asian culture, weddings are not the big deal for the wedding or for photos. It's the pre-wedding session, which is essentially an engagement session. That's about 8 hours long. But they have multiple dresses, they have on-site hair and makeup, and they usually fly to an exotic location of sorts to do the session, and it's about 8 hours long.
So what are some of these exotic locations, like tropical locations?
Sometimes, yeah. Definitely, I've been to Paris, Prague, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Japan, Hong Kong, and next year I go to New Zealand.
Wow, that's a lot of places.
It's a living.
How did you come about doing international photography?
What happened was that actually one client from Hong Kong saw my work, and they were just so obsessed with getting someone that none of their friends hired. Mm-hmm. They randomly found my site, loved their work, flew me from Cincinnati to Prague. They flew from Hong Kong to Prague, and we did a photo session there. From there, I made connections with their planners, the people that did that. Like I said, it's all about kind of, so much not the photography.
Mm-hmm.
So I met their planner, kept in contact with them. They had me fly out to Hong Kong, had a few shoots for me, and then it's just networking and building relationships. So I have 3 pre-wedding sessions in Italy this year just based off of one planner. So.
And are those for mostly Asian weddings? Or are they
Yeah.
Okay. So that's where your international weddings are.
It's mainly an Asian clientele.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any odd or interesting cultural traditions that they might do that we don't do here in the States?
It is a male-dominated industry in Asia, so I'm not allowed to really speak to the clients until the day of the shoot because I'm a female.
Huh.
And the male planner deals with it all, and then they look at the groom and they're like, you need to listen to her and she's going to tell you what to do. So, but up until then, they're shy away from eye contact, look down, don't say a lot.
So their whole life has been male dominated, and then
Mm-hmm.
you come in and say, hey, this is how it's going to happen today.
Well, I wait till I'm given the green light, but yeah, so that was the biggest learning curve for me, where it was just kind of like, really? But yeah.
So what are one of your biggest pet peeves of being a photographer?
People trying to tell me how to do my job. A lot of times there's a bridesmaid that just got married, or someone that's so the bridesmaid, it's like, you should really see it from my angle, and I always look at it and I'm like, oh, what's the name of your studio? And then that gets them quiet. But also, I mean, and this is terrible, but always people trying to show me, I'm in the middle of a wedding, and they're like, look at this picture I took. I just took it off my iPhone, and I'm like, it's obvious to me you took it with your phone. But of course, you just smile and nod your head.
It's
You're
really
like, that's
great.
It's awesome. Wow.
Good job. You pat on
Yeah,
with that.
can I get back to work now? I don't want to look at your iPhone photos. So, yeah.
So do they ever interfere, these guests?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's always the photographer enthusiast, too, that, will ask me a gazillion questions, which is fine. Just not in the middle of, family photos or I had one guy, I was in the middle of a ceremony. He's like, what's your ISO at? And I'm just, loud scream whispers it in a Catholic church, and I'm just look at him like, are you kidding me? Or a lot of times the enthusiasts, they start hovering over you, and you feel their lens touching your shoulder, and you're like, all right.
I'm trying to be creative here.
I'm trying to work, so.
I was actually just at a wedding this weekend, and I was considering talking to the photographers, but I decided against
Just wait till they're not doing anything, because a lot of times, yeah. I mean, I'm polite. I'll be like, oh, just hit me up after I'm done working. Be happy to talk to you about anything. But,
Right.
yeah, it's a lot of, and it sounds like that's not really a big deal, but, I've shot over 300 weddings now, and it's happened at every single, you're just like, here we go.
Are there any crazy stories? We mentioned that weddings never go as planned. Are there any crazy stories that you recall from one of your weddings?
A couple.
Are they
It's mainly
PC?
Couple or no. Mainly, I've just seen full-on meltdowns between the groom's mother and the bride, to where they're screaming at each other, cursing at each other, kicking. This past Saturday, I had the bride kick the mother-in-law.
So you're not
out
getting photos of these, right?
Oh no. There's sometimes where you're just you have your camera, you just slide it down. Let's not make memories of this. But this past weekend, the bride kicked the mother-in-law out of the wedding. She asked her to leave.
Oh, that's too bad.
Weddings bring out the ugly sometimes in people. I don't know. Great example was this past week at this wedding. This bride was like, I have been a nightmare all morning. I've been yelling at people. She's like, the second you showed up, she's like, I'm completely calm and relaxed. I know everything's going to go great. Because you'll learn, for wedding photography, you learn that you are so much more than just a photographer. Literally, they're just the family was super happy with me. I had a great time with them. I could give them the worst set of photos ever, and they would still be over the moon right now, just based off their experience with working with me this past weekend.
Well, that's a testament to how professional and good that you are.
Yeah, unfortunately their photos are great, but you know, it's one of those things that, like, I always say the last bit of my business is actually the work. It's just, you know, this is such an emotional time, especially for the bride. You have to be their therapist, their photographer, their best friend, their, you know, the person they vent to, everything like that.
Right. It all comes down to building relationships and working with people.
Absolutely.
So my last question is, if you had to give only one piece of advice to viewers trying to match your success, your business success, what would that be?
Um, I think a lot of times, and I see this when I hire assistants, this is actually work. It's not easy. It's not always fun. And you're not always going to have a camera in your hands. It's very little actual producing an image. It's just be realistic, realize you're running a business. Focus in on, not as just on your photography, but also focus in on your brand, your website presence, don't neglect anything, because there are thousands of fantastic photographers in the city, but you really need to set yourself apart, and it takes so much more than just the photography.
Wow. Well, that's some really good advice. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you for
Sherri, for
having me.
joining us. It was very, very interesting. I think I learned a lot along with all of our viewers. Well, that's it for Avant Artist Photography. Thank you for joining us. My name is Thomas Zipperstein, and I'll see you guys next week.